How about that? Hello? Hi. Hello, everybody. There we go. Yay! I got my cute little hoodie that somebody sent me, and I got a boom mic or a boom arm that somebody sent me. This hoodie is so adorable, and I wore it yesterday, but I decided to wear it again today because that stream was only an hour long, and I was wearing a shirt underneath it. So check it out. It's so cute. I absolutely love it. Hello, Todd. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Inkboy. Hello, Rez. Hello, One Warped Angel. Hello, Hawk Skull. Hopefully, I got everybody that's here so far. I do have an opening that's actually going to be animated for this. I'm really excited because I have pretty much entirely forgotten everything that I have ever learned about animation. So I am getting to go and relearn most of that, and that is a grand old time. Hopefully the audio all sounds good now. Am I low? I shouldn't be low. I really hope I'm not low. It's not showing low on my end. Do you have your volume cranked? I'm gonna assume that not everybody wants to have to, like, hear me slurping my tea. Let's take the spoon out of this. But yeah, welcome to our, hi, for those of you who are new here. I'm V, also Chesh. Depends on where you're coming from. You might know me as the host of the Non Sequitur Show. You might know me as the goblin that runs around and invades other people's channels. You may also know me, if you're watching this from the future, you may know me from a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons podcasting that's going to be happening soon. So, welcome. There's some shenanigans that have been going on, and I kind of wanted to talk about them. And welcome to the Not podcast, because I'm not actually podcasting this. I'm just streaming it. Because that's how I roll. Guns, Magic, and Steel went live also. Well, YouTube's weird. Puck, don't start. I don't need your sass. No. We don't need your sass. Your comments and questions will also be able to be shown on the screen. Like, such as. Ta-da! Cute! Adorable. I am a fan. So, this is basically our trial run. There will be, like I said, an intro. There will also be outro. So if you are a member or a Patreon, you will be getting an end credits sequence at the end of this show. I'm still working on it, though. It's going to be a progress. This whole podcast is going to be sort of like a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a, it'll get worked on. It'll be a work in progress. It'd be a whip. I'm also probably going to end up getting stuff that I can show here besides just your comments at some point, but it is not this day. I was very busy with Non Sequitur this week, so I didn't get quite too much. The length of the show is going to be somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour, maybe. So again, if you do have questions, be sure you ask them early on to make sure that I can actually get them. Please also make sure to tag me so that I can see it. Actually, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I'll probably see it. I've got chat right in front of me. So, what do I want to talk about? I've actually got notes. The itinerary for today is we're going to be talking a little bit about the Canadian trucker protest. We're going to talk a little bit about Joe Rogan and that censorship controversy with Neil Young and Spotify. And shrinking Pokemon. So I'm going to start with shrinking Pokemon. Pokemon Legends Arceus came out. I'm excited. I don't have a copy yet, but at some point, I will more than likely get to it. Now, there's a throwaway line that one of the NPCs tells you when you're getting Pokeballs. They're basically explaining the way Pokeballs work. And if you're unfamiliar with the Pokemon series, I don't know how, for one, but basically, there's monsters, you throw a ball at them called a Pokeball, it captures them, they get small, they turn into a little red beam of light, and they go into the Pokeball, and then you can throw the Pokeball again and Pokemon pop out. So there has been many a controversy and many a discussion about how Pokeballs actually function. Some people think it like disintegrates the Pokemon into light and then reconfigures them again later. Because you can also store Pokemon in computers. So some people think it's that. Some people think that there's like a more mechanical approach to it. Well, I guess that has been solved because the game explains that Pokemon have the ability to shrink themselves. Yes, I don't understand. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know what the point of moves like Minimize are, if that is the case, because Minimize is a move that some Pokemon can learn that raises your evasion. It makes them small. They compress themselves, so that way they're harder to hit. Well, apparently all Pokemon have the capabilities of doing that, and how to ruin your cannon in 3 words or less. All Pokemon shrink at will. Ginger says, well, good afternoon. And to me and to chat, I'm happy you're going to be talking about this. This is what I had asked about in your AMA last week. I appreciate your perspective. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, now that the little fun thing is over, let's talk about some more serious stuff. I just thought it was interesting. It blew my mind. As soon as I saw that clip from Pokemon, I was like, I was the target age group of Pokemon when it first came out. I mean, to be fair, I'm still part of their target age group. But I blew my mind. Blew my mind. So let's talk about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan basically on his podcast has put forward a lot of, let's call it, misinformation about the way things function in general. Like, this is not new to the Joe Rogan podcast. The Joe Rogan podcast for a long time has talked about things that they get wrong. And that's part of the premise of the show in some cases, where they are just wrong and they just talk about it stirs conversation. In this particular case, he was talking to Jordan Peterson. Of course, he was talking to Jordan Peterson. Oh God, I have a whole video I'm working on about that, which may or may not be out on Friday. Depends. I'll probably focus on the animation first. Jordan Peterson is not that high on my to-do list. Phrasing. Anyway, kind of got into mandates and vaccines and was pushing some not quite so accurate information about those things. Well, Neil Young was pretty not impressed with sharing a platform with that kind of information being put out, and so Neil Young pulled all of his songs off of Spotify, losing the company about $2 billion or so dollars. There have been a handful of other creators that have also pulled their stuff as well, and it's kind of interesting because some people are screaming cancel culture, some people are screaming censorship, and I'm kind of like, I kind of almost feel like this is more of a free market thing. Like, if I don't want to share a stage with a particular person, then it's my right to pull that stuff, right? And saying, hey, listen, I don't want to be seen with this person, but if that person's not there, then I'm more than happy to come back. It might be a power move, but is it saying that he can't have a podcast or produce his own stuff? I mean, Alex Jones can still do that. So, no, that was a YouTube hiccup, Ink Boy. Yeah, the Guns, Magic, and Steel is currently streaming. I'll edit and delete that. I'll take care of it, but I have to do it after the stream is over. That is a YouTube stream key hiccup that happens every so often. Tis unfortunate, but I'll get that fixed. Also, yes, Guns, Magic, and Steel. If you're interested in Dungeons and Dragons, we play that on Wednesdays for charity. So, the result of this has basically been Joe Rogan has his podcast on Spotify, and Neil Young and some other people are no longer on Spotify. And I think that's well within their right. But it kind of begs the question that as an artist, are you sort of responsible for the programs that that you platform with? And I think that if it's smaller, like a smaller venue, then I would say, I mean, I guess, like, I imagine it would be kind of a big deal if somebody was like some big name was like, I'm not going to Woodstock because this other guy is there and I don't want him, I don't want to be seen with him. I think that says a lot. I don't necessarily think it's cancel culture, although I do think that there are plenty of people who will spin it into that, or like it will I don't mean spin it into as in fake it. I mean like it will spiral. But I also think there's an interesting conversation to be had about whether or not, like, how do you make a statement like that? How do you make a statement like that with, I don't think you do. Like, things like that are just going to spin out of control. And yeah, Todd makes a good point. It's their music. They can do what they want. If they don't want to be seen with other artists or on the same and share a platform with some artist, they're well within their right to not have to. I think that's totally fair. And I don't think that they should be silenced due to the fear of cancel culture one way or the other. So like if Joe Rogan fans are like, "Oh, well, we're never listening to this guy again." Good, you don't have to. That's also fine. This to me seems more like free market type stuff than it does to me like cancel culture, right? But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just not understanding it. I when it comes to like blatant misinformation, I feel like there are some things that there's a little bit more that can be done by platforms in some cases, but they're going to make whatever business decision is best for them. If it's best for Spotify to host misinformation, then they're going to do that. I don't know. I mean, and I don't think it's fair for people who have large platforms, who are artists, musicians, and otherwise, saying, "Well, we just listen to you for your music. Shut up about your politics." Well, they're a person too. I mean, they should probably still be allowed to have whatever say they have. I think that's fair. Athens makes a good point and says it's not cancel culture, but Spotify's willingness of having covfefe, disinformation, and other stuff on their platform. And Joe Rogan is well known for having heavy disinformation. I think that's more of the problem. Like I said at the beginning, Joe Rogan podcast is known for having like these sort of counterculture, but instead of it just being counterculture, it's kind of just misinformation and disinformation. And so maybe to survive in this kind of a climate, because that's how the free market works, Joe Rogan needs to adjust his podcast in a way that's more consumable, has less disinformation in it, depending on what Spotify decides to do. But I think it's questionable if Spotify, depending on what Spotify decides to do. It's their platform, they're allowed to do what they want. And people are also allowed to decide that they don't like Spotify anymore because of it. Like, the thing is people are fucking dying. Maybe take this a little bit more seriously. But hey, what do I know? So, moving on from that. Oh, actually, wondering why asks a good question before I move on from that. How do we best hold accountability to a big platform like Spotify? Maybe this will help. I think that's a fair point. How do you make a large platform such as Spotify or Apple Podcast or YouTube, for example, how do you let them know, or how do you hold them accountable for what's on their platform? And it's the same with Facebook, right? It's not that simple, and it's not that simple because this is international. It's also as complicated as not everybody is from America. Not every country is having the same covfefe problems that parts of America are having. Um and so yeah, how do you convince them? And the only thing I can think of is not watching, and not watching, shutting it down, or like by that I mean shutting down disinformation whenever you see it, sharing more information stuff. The thing is the viewers drive content on YouTube, but so does the algorithm. So because the algorithm caters towards a specific thing and a specific like drama and draw and visual style, there's creators have to fight between audience and algorithm. What's the algorithm gonna like? What's your audience gonna like? What kind of audience are you trying to create? But the more people kind of push past the algorithm to comment and like and share, and if you're persistent, then it will force whatever content you're watching or you're looking at or you're encouraging into the algorithm. So it, like I said, it takes a lot of work. It's really complicated. It's if you have a solid group of people that are consistent, it's that consistency that's going to make the change in the algorithm. I love when I love when Rage Against the Machine got critiqued for talking about politics by some people. Yeah, that's it's not unusual for art to be part of politics, or artists to talk about politics in their artwork. That's a big part of art is political, or making statements, or putting across a message. Ginger says, "Is it misinformation, or is it having conversations from a different or opposing views?" The answer is it can be both. So if you have somebody with a viewpoint that is opposing, and their viewpoint is wrong, like factually incorrect, and the host or whoever is having the conversation does not push back and say, well, actually that's wrong, here's the correct information, then I'd say it's just pushing misinformation. So like if you had somebody on saying that, I don't know, trying to think of something. Oh, people are walking around with masks on, but that person has AIDS and they don't have to wear a mask because of their AIDS. Yeah, I saw that on Reddit today. Um, yeah, that's not how AIDS spreads. So if you don't correct that with saying, well, that's not how AIDS spreads, so it's not relevant, then and if instead you just said, oh yeah, that's a good point, maybe everybody who has AIDS should be wearing a mask, you're spreading disinformation, you're part of the problem. The point is if you're going to have a podcast about controversial issues, you need to understand and know about the issues, and that's just not the Joe Rogan podcast. It's just not. And should Spotify do anything about it, or should the Joe Rogan podcast want to do something about it to create a better product to sell to more people if people aren't interested? I mean, I say the same thing a little bit about comedy and comedians. When you have a comedian that's complaining about cancel culture because a joke didn't land, and it's like, it's possible that your joke is just out of date. That's the thing that happens. And so no, you have to know your audience, especially as a comedian. If you don't know your audience and they don't like your stuff, it's they're allowed to not like your joke. They're not canceling you. They just don't think you're funny now. So change your routine in some cases. And in other cases, sometimes, yeah, it's cancel culture is bullshit when it's actually cancel culture. But That word gets thrown around a lot. So people will call criticism cancel culture. Joe Rogan being criticized for having misinformation and other people not wanting to be seen with him isn't really cancel culture. The fact that this is from John Parker, the fact that Spotify was dragged unwillingly into putting COVID misinformation warnings under each of these types of podcasts tells you all you need to know about their leadership. Yeah, that shouldn't be an unwilling thing. It's one of those things where it's like, it's really hard to be transparent as a company, and it's especially hard with a company that large. And I understand not wanting to make changes and wanting to have to make that kind of distinction, or wanting to have to make that kind of decision. Like, well, which one is which? Which do I put this under? I'm going to get flack either way. Well, at the end of the day, it is your responsibility. It is your platform. You've kind of signed up for this when you made your platform as open as you did. And so it's kind of part of the job. It's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, well, sucks to be you, I guess. Mr. Serious says, give Spotify no money or ad revenue. If enough people stop using Spotify, they'll quickly act to fix whatever's causing that. That's very true. That's a very good point. If you want somebody or you want something to change what they're doing, stopping giving them any money whatsoever is a good way to do it. However, there are artists that will suffer if you do that, particularly smaller artists in some cases. And so it becomes a question of, like, do you continue to support the small artists, or do you just cut off Spotify entirely? Because it would probably take a month or two. Yes, I know I'm streaming it twice. There was a YouTube hiccup. Eh. George Carlin is never out of date. George Carlin was very poignant. Rez makes a good point and says, the Joe Rogan podcast is an apathetic platform that fence sits as much as it can to take advantage of misinformation and stupidity. It's an irresponsible platform and thus dangerous. Cancel away. I mean, the question is like, is there enough value to be gotten from, is there a way to fix it? Could you fix the Joe Rogan podcast? I don't think so, but I think there's ways to do it better. The Non Sequitur Show, for example. I think the Non Sequitur Show is a way better way to do the same kind of thing that the Joe Rogan podcast does. You can do this interview kind of style, but you can give the proper pushback and the proper information when needed. So you'd be better off finding podcasts like that and listening to those and pushing those instead, as much as people push. And like, the only way to get things to replace other things is by replacing them. So if you like and share and post it everywhere once a day or whatever, that will really help. Whatever show that it is you're trying to support is actually showing support by liking, sharing, subscribing, and like tweeting and retweeting and putting it on Facebook and sharing it around to your friends, and just like being like, hey, you should watch this episode, or hey, this episode was really good, you should do this, or hey, you should take a look at that. In comments, in Twitter threads, in wherever you think it's relevant, helps greatly for making change like that, because it causes algorithms to pick up and start recommending things it otherwise wouldn't. So doing that is probably one of the best ways that you can make changes on platforms like this. Oh my god, everybody's telling me the same things. Yes. YouTube hiccuped and it is streaming in both places. Yes. I know. It is what it is. I need a vote in the chat also. Chat, please tell me what you think, if I should have a little bit of music playing in the background or not. Because right now it's just me talking, and I don't know if that's preferred or if having some background music would be more appropriate. So 1 in the chat for yes music, 2 in the chat for no music. Let me know what you guys think as we sort of build this podcast together. I appreciate your support. Hey, all that stuff I said you should do if you want to support creators that are actually a little bit more your speed, you should totally do that for me. Go find a comment section and throw me in there. Go find a Twitter thread and comment that I exist. Yeah. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the the Canadian trucker protests. So, some positive things have come out of this, some negative things have come out of this. Negative things. Nazi flags? Bruh? How about no? How about we just shut that shit right the fuck down and no none of that. No. That's you. So apparently some of the truckers I shared there's links below by the way to everything. So one was for music, 2 was for no. So far 2 is winning. All right. One links are down below if you wanted to look into a little bit more of anything I was talking about. But I guess the for those of you who don't know, there was like a huge line of trucks that got together and they drove to Ottawa to go protest at Parliament. Well, they were at the Capitol, but they weren't at the building that actually, like the Parliament building that actually deals with the thing that they're protesting. The thing that they're protesting is actually Toronto, and so they are now making their way to Toronto. Now, I don't know if that was purposeful and part of the convoy route, or if that was completely accidental and they just didn't know. Next off is that they were blocking a border crossing between America and Canada, and basically their excuse was, well, we're only blocking this one. Dude, don't block the roads. Please. I know you want to make things inconvenient for people so that way people will pay attention to you, and they said that, so that's not just me bullshitting. They actually said that one of the reasons was because this is the only way for anybody to pay attention to them, which I think is something to be discussed. But they were blocking roads. Don't block roads. Block roads. That is unlawful protest in Canada. Nazi flags, hard pass. Hard pass on the Nazi flags. Get that shit gone, as far as I'm concerned. And their radios are getting shut, so they're like, because they talk to each other in the on their own like shortwave radios. Well, I guess trolls have been on their radio playing Rams Ranch over and over and over again, so they had to shut their radios down. But the positive thing is that the way the protests were handled by the police was that basically they brought them in, sat them down, gave them coffee, and had a conversation. And we're like, okay, what do you want? What kind of negotiation can we have here? The reason why that's also problematic is because that is not the way the police have handled some of the other protests, like with some of the Native American protests that have gone on in very recent Canadian history. By recent Canadian history, I mean like a month ago or so. And the police were not as kind. Now, does that mean the police are racist? Maybe. But also, the part that I think people miss is that the Native Americans should have been treated better, not that the Nazi truckers should be treated worse. And I can't believe we have a Nazi trucker convoy going on. Yeah, they're mad that people are calling them terrorists, apparently. Stop waving around Nazi flags if you don't want people to think you're terrorists. I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this. This seems like the most basic bitch shit. If you don't want people to think you're the bad guy, don't dress up like the bad guy. Ginger Lee says the Nazi flags and problematic stuff were fringe groups jumping on the bandwagon. I don't know if that's the case. From what I've followed so far, was that there was the sentiment of like the white nationalist sentiment was a part of what got the convoy going in the first place. Now it doesn't mean it's the only people. I'm more than happy to be like, yeah, no, there are people who have decent points. I understand people being upset and not wanting any more shutdowns and not wanting and being concerned about their freedoms when it comes to mask mandates. I can understand like having those issues and why you might have those issues. It's bad for industry, it's bad for individuals, it's bad for jobs. It's not easy to pay your rent when you can't go to work because of lockdowns. I definitely understand. I also understand that Canada has starting to feel that we're done with this. They're burned out. Also totally fair. So I can understand some of the reasons why these protests are happening and why they're beginning to happen. However, maybe if you see somebody throw up a Nazi flag as part of your group, you may want to consider taking some action towards that. But yeah, there are definitely trolls that will go places and like show up and try and make things difficult for everybody. But yeah, this is a large issue that has a lot of components to it. And so it's really, I'm just kind of trying to sum up the issues that people are having and what's been talked about so far. So I'm going to keep following it along and kind of see where it goes. I'm happy that the police were able to negotiate and are talking them into opening the road again to let people go through and nobody's getting shot and there's not like riots going on or trucks being tipped over or police cars getting like run through by trucks. That is the positive outcome so far of what's been going on. I'm happy that the police are negotiating and the police are actually like involving themselves in a way that's more communal. I am not happy that the police didn't behave this way or behave as fairly towards other protesters. From what I was reading about this convoy, there was also a lot of like racism being thrown about, particularly towards Native American stuff. But again, like I said, I'll have to look a little bit more into that to find out what's gone on further. Inkboy, who's been a member for 18 months, and the Goblin Conscripts, thank you so much. Also, nice truck protest while gas prices rising. Yeah, and that didn't think that one through so much. But hey, to each their own. Much appreciated. If anybody would like to support and become a member, please do. The link is right below, and it's like $2. So you want to send me a toonie because I'm Canadian, buy me some more tea. Much appreciated. You also get access to the Discord, where pretty much all the rewards you get to see sort of the topics that are coming up, make suggestions of topics, as well as hang out, chat, see what's coming down the pipeline. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that truckers have been treated very fairly for the good number of years now, and I would like to see them treated better. But Noxies can fuck off. All right. Feline, please click back. I've addressed it a good number of times. So, that's where I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you all had a good time. Like and share, leave a comment. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to see what I can. If you're wondering partially where I was getting my news from, link is down below in the description. Feel free to support, share, all that fun stuff. Rusty Nails, thank you so much for joining the conscripts. There will be a link on the community tab for the Discord if you are interested in joining up over there. It's not required, so if you don't want to and you just want to support and lurk, I am also completely 100% on board with that. End credits will be coming soon where members will be listed, as well as Patreon members. If you're interested in doing Patreon instead, links below to that also. And if you want to support in a more direct way where there isn't a third party necessarily making so much money off of those, you can go ahead and Amazon wishlist. And if you want to send something to my dog, he's got one down there too. Have a good day, everybody. I was able to keep this under 40 minutes. Bye.